What up, though, good people? This is your boy Chef EJ coming at you from Jelani Catering, and I'd like to welcome you to our Culinary School Survival Guide, the series where I'll chronicle my culinary school experience to help you decide if culinary school is right for you. Before we get into it all, I want to explain to you all what made me come up with this series. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube where people say culinary school is not worth it, or yeah, culinary school is worth it, it's the greatest place on earth, but nobody ever tells you why they feel that way or the exact reason or tell you their experiences. And I think that's where I come in. I'm going to tell you my experience so that way you can determine it for yourself. Because as anybody knows, only you can make that decision for you. To start, I'm going to give you all a little background on myself. I'm the executive chef of Jelani Private Catering. We are a small catering company that specializes in private parties and events. We do more upscale, fine dining style food, and it's a company I'm really proud of that I built. But before that, and even before I even decided to go to culinary school, I wanted to pick a field in which I could work for myself and that I would be challenged to grow daily. And upon further determination, culinary school was that for me, or the culinary school was that for me. So when I decided to go to culinary school, I came up with a few goals. One short-term goal and two long-term goals. One of the long-term goals was a goal that could be accomplished throughout time. It was a goal that would never stop, which was one, to travel. And my second goal, as far as long-term, was to become an executive chef of my own company. And now that I've started that leg of my culinary journey, I felt it was only right or necessary to kind of give my experience to future students, current students, or people who just like the food industry in general. But my short-term goal was to ultimately graduate culinary school. There were many trials, many tribulations there, as with any story. Nothing that the average person or any person couldn't overcome, but there were definitely trials and tribulations and things that required focus. However, you couldn't spend all of your time in the classroom studying too hard, not having any fun. You need balance in your life. It just doesn't work like that. Even when you graduate school, there's some form of balance that you need to have in your life. But back to my background. Before I went to culinary school, I attended a tech center program in high school for 2 years, which was my junior and senior year of high school, which kind of gave me a little bit of culinary fundamentals in the basics of skills that I would need to go into culinary school or even determine if culinary was something that I wanted to do. In addition to doing tech center in high school, I also worked at Burger King and McDonald's. So I'm not one of those bougie chefs that only knows fancy food. I've worked in multiple type of kitchens, such as McDonald's and Burger King, all the way to the high-end clubs and restaurants. But moving on from that, I then attended the Culinary Institute of Michigan by Baker's College in Muskegon, Michigan, which is right outside of Grand Rapids, approximately 30-45 minutes, depending on the snow. Never really the traffic, but the snow. My Michiganders know what I'm talking about. After I attended the Culinary Institute of Michigan, I then worked for multiple places, large resorts, hotels, big food conglomerates, private clubs, and independently owned restaurants. Now I am on the leg of my culinary career where I'm an entrepreneur, as they would say, owning my own private catering company and making myself an executive chef and executing the style of food that I want to, using techniques that I've learned from multiple chefs in the industry, with the experiences I've gained. Now, as I said, before I attended culinary school post-secondary, I attended a tech center in high school. The name of that tech center was Oakland Schools Technical Center Southwest Campus, which was located on Beck Road over in Wixom. There, I got fundamental skills and basic culinary training in a semi-restaurant setting. The restaurant was open to the public, but it wasn't a real restaurant setting. But the simulation of the restaurant as far as prep work and an actual service was valuable to a young aspiring culinarian. The instructors I had there were great, and to this day I remember all four: Chef Charles Neal, Chef John McCormick, Miss Patty Fox, and Chef Heather. I'm sorry, Chef. I don't remember her last name, but Chef Heather headed the bake shop at our campus. Chef John and Chef Charles headed the culinary side. Miss Patty Fox, my fave, I love Miss Fox, headed the front of the house and trained the high school students, or I should say culinary students, on the operations of the front of the house, such as setting a table, where the silverware goes, where the wine glass goes, which hand to serve the beverage from, which hand to serve food from, and which hand to clear from, which is all valuable information to any culinarian. Even if you only want to be in the back of the house, it's important to understand the nuances and certain aspects of the front of the house. Chef John McCormick, who was the owner of a spice company, which I believe is still around, Red Goose. He was also the executive chef of the Detroit Athletic Club, which I had worked at one point in time. He was the executive chef there at one point, not while I was working there, but he was. Just had a great knowledge of culinary food and experience, as well as Chef Charles Neal, who at one point was the executive chef for the Indiana Pacers during the Reggie Miller era. So when Indianapolis was on fire, the Pacers was a big team. I believe Jalen Rose was playing for the team at that time, another Detroit cat. What up, though? So he also brought a bevy of culinary experience to us high school students at a young age. And Chef Heather provided solid fundamentals on baking, such as quick breads, basic doughs, bread making, such as sourdough, wheat breads, things of that nature, just to have a solid foundation in baking. Whether you use those skills all the time or not, it's great to have a foundation and be fundamentally sound in those aspects. These chefs not only taught and gave me fundamentals in the culinary field, but they aided in me deciding which culinary school to go to. They explained the differences that each school offered, the benefits that each school offered, and asked me the question, what was I trying to do in the culinary field? Which ultimately will decide or help decide or be a deciding factor in which school you choose, which we will go over later. And with their aid and advice, the school I felt right for me was the Culinary Institute of Michigan, which is located in Muskegon, Michigan, right outside of Grand Rapids, as I said earlier. Part of the aid and advice that I received was to visit the culinary schools that you wanted to attend. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm going to go into my culinary school visits, because it wasn't just one, which was the Culinary Institute of Michigan, where I actually attended, but for short, we're going to call it the SIM. I also visited Lincoln Technical Institute, which is in Connecticut. And I'll go into both of my visits on the next episode of the Culinary School Survival Guide. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share if you like our content. Once again, I'm Chef EJ from Jelani Catering, and as I always say, cheers!